Welcome back to part 2 of Africa, back to where we began. So yesterday in our lecture we left off on the Great Zimbabwe. So I just want to obviously pick up where we left off. Before we go on, I want to remind you that this obviously is a video, so feel free to pause at any moment if you need to go grab a snack, use the bathroom, take a brain break even. Although class just started, at least hopefully you're watching this at the start of class, so regardless, pause the video if you need to. So, Great Zimbabwe. It is located in the southeast corner of Africa. Before I forget, sorry, my ADHD is all over the place today. So, before I forget, these notes are on the same note outline as yesterday. So you don't have to print anything off that's new. You don't have to find anything new. It's all in the same note packet. So, alright, disclaimers over. Great Zimbabwe, located in Southeast Asia, in Africa, obviously. It has a large, enormous mineral resource area. Clearly, being articulate is also difficult for me today, guys. I'm so sorry. So basically what they have is large amounts of mineral resources, specifically gold, copper, diamonds, platinum, and uranium. So Great Zimbabwe is going to be much more removed from the rest of Africa, meaning they're not going to have a lot of communication or interactions with most of Africa. That is until the Bantu migration. And if you remember from yesterday's lecture, the Bantu migration is basically the Bantu tribes, the nomads. They are moving from place to place, either basically killing the people they encounter, driving them out of their territory, or assimilating. And so in this case, the Bantu will come, share ideas, and not completely take over, but attempt to assimilate. So, Great Zimbabwe is going to dominate Central Africa between the 9th to 16th century. So they will grow and they will become a powerful source of politics and economics. They're going to control the gold mines and the routes to the Swahili coast. So if you are in control of any trade route or any precious or luxury item, you obviously are going to have a lot of power and control around the people not only living in your country or your camp, your area, but also those around you who want access to those goods. So Great Zimbabwe has a monument, which is the most impressive monument in Africa south of the Nile. So this is, people basically compare it to the Great Pyramids of Giza. That is the North African attraction, if you will, or tourist spot, and then in the south is this Great Zimbabwe monument. It's basically this stone wall fortress, and it was not only just their political center to offer protection, but it was also their religious center as well. This is just a basic introduction to Zimbabwe, Swahili city-states. You guys won't be going into depth until 8th grade, and we'll be doing this map tomorrow in our live class. So tomorrow, Friday, we will be going over our Africa map. You'll be getting a blank one. Hopefully you guys can print one off. If you don't have access to it, that's fine. You can obviously rewatch the video, which I'm going to make, and fill your map in later. But it's important to understand geography when we're studying history. So now let's focus our attention to the African kingdoms in the east. So the southern part of the Nile, or upstream from Egypt. So hopefully the Kush sounds somewhat familiar to you guys, whether it's from classics or when we were talking about ancient Egypt again this year. But the Kush were to the south of ancient Egypt. Meroe is going to be their capital, and they're basically known for their ironwork and their trade. They will be influenced by the Egyptians, and so they're going to create similar structures to the ancient Egyptians. You see their tombs and pyramids in their cities that are quite similar. I mean, look at the picture to your right. You can see that's actually from the Kush Empire, the Meroe capital. It's not from ancient Egypt. So we can obviously see a heavy Egyptian influence. They're going to be governed by an all-powerful sacred monarch, occasionally, which could be women. So what I want to emphasize is they are ruled by a king or queen, right? And their king or queen is not only seen just as this powerful authority, but also they have a sacred element, so some sort of divine connection to their god or gods. The occupations of people in the Kush or Meroe region they're typically merchants, weavers, potters, or masons. And then the lower class jobs would consist of servants, laborers, and slaves. So obviously trade is going to be a huge portion of this unit. It's not just talking about Africa. We'll talk about the Byzantine Empire in a little bit, but we're also going to talk about trade routes. Trade routes are extremely important because they are an information highway, whether you're talking about news of government or you're trying to share information about technology, philosophies, religions, ideas, thing of that nature. Sorry if you hear the clinking lilies moving around. I don't think I'm boring her quite yet with my lesson today. So back to Africa and trade. As you can see, the Kush kingdom here is just south of Egypt, looking at your map on the right. So they would use the Nile to go north, and then they would use camel caravans to go east. They're going to trade iron, leopard skins, ebony, for goods from the Mediterranean and Red Sea regions. So if you remember, the Mediterranean is up here if we're looking at our map. Hopefully you can see my arrow. This is the Mediterranean Sea. When Rome had control, it was known as the Roman Sea. And so this is going to be a highway of goods and services from all over what is now modern-day Europe and the Arabian Peninsula. But back then, that was a great source of goods would come from the Mediterranean, then into the Nile Delta, and then down the Nile into the Kush region. And here you can see a picture of camel caravans. So there's going to be a decline. Obviously, nothing lasts forever. And so basically what's going to happen is we see deforestation caused by the need to get wood for smelting iron. So they would use the wood to feed the furnaces, so that would help create the iron. They're also going to decline due to the Nile being cut out, essentially, as a trade highway. People are going to go around the Nile and just go directly into the Arabian Gulf here, or directly Mediterranean Sea, the Persian Sea, and the Indian Ocean. So basically they're going to be eliminated due to like trade not going in and out of their kingdom anymore. So this rising state to the south of them, known as Aksum, will take power and basically absorb the Kush Empire. So Aksum, which is located in modern-day Ethiopia, looking at your map, you can see the Kush Meroe capital here. Aksum was to the south. Still had great connection to the Red Sea, but since the Nile River is no longer that main traffic highway, they were able to make that connection to India a lot more fruitful. So Aksum is located, as I mentioned, in modern-day Ethiopia along the Red Sea. And so here we see multiple pictures of items that were traded with Egypt, Greece, Rome, Persia, and India. So animal hides, as depicted in these Egyptian hieroglyphs, came from Aksum. We see tortoiseshell bracelets as well as slaves with Muslim traders. So slavery did exist back then, and it was a common practice that slaves would be traded on these trade routes here. Oh, I forgot to touch on this. So through trade, they absorbed many elements of Roman culture. One of which being, the adoption of Christianity. So the trade connection will bring Christianity to Aksum. If you remember nothing else, remember this. Trade is a highway for spreading technology, ideas, concepts, languages, religions. So due to trade, we have so many things being shared across the world. King Ezana is going to adopt Christianity around the same time that Constantine will pass the Edict of Milan. A little reminder or refresher, Constantine was the emperor of the Roman Empire, and he declared the Edict of Milan after successfully winning a battle. The significance of the Edict of Milan is that it allowed for religious freedom in the Roman Empire. So it meant you could practice any religion you wanted freely. It wouldn't be until years later when Theodosius the second, I believe, becomes emperor that Christianity becomes the official religion of the Roman Empire. But this is a huge step. Constantine is moving forward in ending the Christian persecution. Ethiopia's large Christian community today, we're talking like 2021, is a direct result of King Ezana's conversion. So the king had a huge impact on his citizens that you can see the remnants of still today. Later in the 7th century, some of these people living in the region are going to convert to Islam, but not on a large scale like that of Christianity. So both Christianity and Islam illustrate how Aksum was in constant contact with empires in the Mediterranean region. This is where they learned of these religions, these ideas. So you have the depiction of Christianity here on your left with these beautiful, basically like paintings, works of art. So it's meant to represent Jesus and, I should remember this, St. Paul? No, I can't remember which saint it is, but you can tell that they are holy or have divinity by the halo behind their head. And then he is stabbing a serpent. So I'll have to do some research if you guys are curious on that. And then to your right, you can see a Muslim woman reading the Quran. And then her partner or father or somebody, a gentleman, reading next to her. Remember, if I go too quickly, you can pause. That video was basically explaining how in Oxum there was this pillar that was taken by Napoleon Bonaparte, who was a French emperor, and it was taken to France. Or was it not? Sorry, it was not Napoleon. It was a Roman emperor. I can't remember. But basically, this famous pillar was taken out of Oxum into Italy, and then years later, we're talking like in the 80s, I believe, or 90s, they finally returned this beautiful pillar. So, okay. So Oxum's economy was based on agriculture, farming, that was plow-based. And you can see that in this picture up here, meaning they used animals and plows to plow their field, make the rows for farming. They didn't do it by hand. They're going to trade ivory and gold, and the taxes on the trade are actually going to be providing large revenue, meaning large income to Oxum. Basically, they're going to tax anything that is being traded via the Red Sea to India. So Oxum will attempt to conquer Mecca in 571, around the same time that Muhammad is born. This attempt, though, will be short-lived. It will not be successful. The decline of Oxum is actually due to several different reasons. So the first of which being environmental changes. Basically, people were exhausting the soil. If you plant the same crops in the same field year after year after year, those crops need certain nutrients that are in the soil. And if you don't plant different crops that take different minerals out of the soil, basically the soil just is exhausted and it becomes useless. You can't replenish the minerals. So that's why farmers will today, in order to put minerals back into their farmland, they'll switch out crops depending on how many years it's been. Erosion and deforestation, also a result of intense farming. We're also going to see the rise of Islam, which will result in trade routes being altered, and then as a result, the loss of tax revenue. So if people are no longer going to your city for trade, you lose that tax on those items. So the Kingdom of Kush and the Kingdom of Oxum depicted here on the map, those are not our heavy focus in our comps, so we're not going to spend too much detail. So I know this is a large portion on your packet, so remember it's a video, you can pause and come back to it. So these are common cultural characteristics that most Africans share. Remember, this is most, it's not everybody, so this is kind of like a synopsis, a generalization. So most of the people living in Africa were organized into family groups. They believed in one creator God, so they were monotheistic, but they also believed in animism, which was the supernatural power and souls in natural objects that could do harm or help. I believe this was a question on your Unit 3 pre-comp study guide, and I gave you a very general definition. If you have time, if you have it available to you, I would highly recommend you add this definition to that Unit 3 pre-comp study guide on animism. Basically, it's a supernatural power and souls in natural objects that could do harm or help. They believe in ancestral spirits and traditional deities or gods. They believe in this case, not gods, because they believe typically in one creator God, so we're talking about spirits, right? They shared culture orally. So this was the occupation of a griot, which was kind of like the historian. So they would be in charge of remembering the history of their people, and then they would verbally share it in stories, as you can see over here on the left. Most of these actual societies were matrilineal, which means women were in charge. They contained the power and land and basically family goods were passed down through the women in the family. So if your mother passed away, she would give you land or goats or animals or anything like that. That's what it means to be matrilineal in a very general definition. There was an age-set system of or life being marked as passing through stages, and this came with ritual ceremonies and rites. So the closest thing I can get to explaining that is in the United States we have our rites of passage, right? And it depends on your culture as well. So for many people, Sweet 16, that's like a huge coming of age, right? In the Hebrew faith, your bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah is when you turn 13. It's kind of seen as you becoming an adult. In many Hispanic cultures, they have the quinceañera. So when you turn 15, you're welcomed into society as an adult. So they had similar traditions as well. So that is where we're going to end our discussion on Africa today. And then we're going to begin West Africa, I'm hoping either Friday or next week. But thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys soon.